You stand at the edge of the forest as the first drops arrive, delicate and shy, each a bead that kisses your forearm and vanishes. The air holds its breath. Then a hush moves through the trees, and it is as if the whole world agrees to speak. More softly, you step forward. Leaves glisten. The path narrows into green, and the rain becomes a fine silver thread you can hear before you fully feel it. You walk at an unhurried pace. With every step, the scent of petrichor rises, a warm, earthy perfume that tells the story of dust meeting water. Scientists trace it to plant oils resting in dry soil, and to geosmin, a molecule spun by friendly bacteria in the ground. When raindrops strike the earth, tiny air bubbles trap that scent, burst, and loft it upward. You breathe it in, and you're. Mind translates chemistry into memory. First monsoons, courtyards rinsed clean, a door opening to somewhere safe. Sound changes here. Rain trims the sharp edges of noise, turning the forest into a soft auditorium. Wet leaves absorb the bright notes. The patter becomes polyrhythm, billions of short impacts measured in heartbeats. Your steps find their own tempo. When your exhale lengthens, the forest seems to exhale with you. The body understands rain. It invites your parasympathetic system forward, slowing your pulse, untangling the day's knots. You let your shoulders rest a little lower and listen. The path bends around a boulder darkened to velvet. Moss glows as if lit from within, tiny forests upon forests, carrying water along capillary highways so narrow that surface tension does. The lifting. You think of how water climbs trunks around you, pulled upward by evaporation in the leaves, a chain of molecules tugging one another through xylem, like friends crossing a stream hand in hand. The entire forest is drinking in slow motion. So are you. You open your mouth to the mist. It tastes like beginnings. Ahead, a branch bows, heavy with wet. A single drop gathers, hesitates, and releases. You watch it fall. Gravity begins the story. Air writes the next lines. The drop is not a perfect sphere, but a little flattened, and as it falls, ripples breathe on its skin. When it lands in a shallow puddle, it sends a ring outward, a brief grammar written on water. Your eyes follow the ripples until they fade into glass again. You feel the quiet thrill of witnessing a small phenomenon fully. A bird trills once, then again, adjusting its song to weather. Many birds sing softer in rain, saving energy. Others, like the thrush that echoes now from the understory, use the dampened acoustics as shelter to practice. You cannot see it, but you picture its throat, a syringeal instrument flexing with ancestral skill. Your imagination is patient here. The rain gives it permission to slow down enough to see what it wants to see. Your shoes darken with water. The mud beneath is not unkind. It remembers your weight and holds you steady. Somewhere underfoot, an invisible network of fungal threads shares messages and sugars between roots, a slow internet made of living lace. The mycelium thrives when the soil is moist, braiding plant to plant with whispers of phosphorus and warning. You wonder how many quiet conversations travel beneath your steps this moment. How many small kindnesses are being exchanged? You pause to study a fern. Each leaflet catches droplets in the crease between veins, channeling them to the stem. Careful choreography. The geometry calms you. Pattern recognition is one of your oldest comforts, the brain's way of saying, this fits. Even the way raindrops gather is patterned. On some leaves they bead, repelled by waxy cuticles. On others they spread, invited to soak. The difference depends on microscopic texture, on the chemistry of welcome. The thought makes you generous. Toward your ... a wind moves through, and the rain thickens to a curtain, not harsh but decisive. You draw your hood up and keep walking. Your breath fogs the little space before your lips, and you are briefly your own weather. Around you, Negative air ions multiply where water breaks tiny charged particles some studies associate with lifted. Mood. You do not need the study now. The evidence is in your chest, where something unclenches and lets the world in. You feel both smaller and more connected, like a drop in a lake. The ground rises. The path lifts toward a break in the trees, and with it, a faint warmth reaches your skin. Between trunks, a low amber glow flickers the cottage. It is not close yet, but close enough that your body makes small decisions. You straighten. You quicken. You imagine a dry hearth and a cup held in both hands. Your mind maps the distance. Your feet count quietly. While you walk, a memory arranges itself. You are standing under a summer downpour years ago, laughing for no reason, the rain thick as beads in doorway light. Neuroscience names the root. From scent to feeling olfactory bulb, amygdala, hippocampus a path where smell goes straight to emotion before words step in. That is why petrichor brings not just images, but atmospheres. You let the memory be a room you pass through, rather than a house you move into. You keep walking. Near a group of birches, the rain eases. Drops cling to the paper bark, forming a constellation of small mirrors. In each, a miniature forest hangs upside down. You consider how vision is always a translation. Light bends in. Your cornea flips in your retina and turns again in your brain to make the world upright. You are constantly writing things without noticing. The realization makes you kinder to the hidden work your mind performs, the stitching that lets you simply see. A shallow creek crosses the path, fed by new rain. You step from stone to stone, arms slightly out for balance. The water carries dissolved. Stories minerals from hill and root, tiny organisms swept along in a brief migration. The creek speaks in vowels against the rocks. You linger for a few breaths and feel your pulse slow to the same unspelled music. The coordination is not magic. It is resonance, rhythms aligning for a moment and letting each other rest. Far bank, a fallen leaf lies plastered to the mud like a pressed fossil. Its veins look like streets on a night map. You think of your own vessels, the quiet traffic of blood, the way red cells carry oxygen with iron at their core, little lanterns lit by chemistry. Rain is part of that story. Every sip you take was once cloud, lake, ocean, perhaps comet ice long ago. In some precise sense, you are walking through the oldest drink in the world. A soft rumble rolls from far off. Not thunder, just the forest adjusting to wait. Branches shed water in sheets. Somewhere a fox's den smells sharper, the rain drawing scent from fur. You keep moving, drawn by the glow that grows warmer ahead. The cottage seems to breathe with the rain, its chimney stitching steam into the low sky. You picture a kettle. Beginning to think about singing dot as you approach, you pass a ring of mushrooms at the path's edge, amber caps shining. Folklore calls it a fairy circle. Biology calls it the edge of an underground organism, widening year by year in a slow, living compass. Both names feel true. You nod to the circle and to your own habit of carrying two kinds of knowing at once. In this weather, they do not argue. The last bend reveals the clearing. The cottage sits low, stones dark with wet, a window square of moving light. The door is painted a soft blue, the color of a sky just before evening decides itself. You stop beneath the broad arms of a cedar to listen to the rain finish a sentence. On the glass, droplets race and merge, then start over. You watch them the way one watches a fireplace. Not for plot, but for presence. Your hands are warm now. That surprises you. Anticipation can do that, coaxing vessels open, sending heat outward to meet what is coming. You place your palm on your chest and feel your heart steady a metronome set to enough. The air smells like wood and rosemary and distant smoke. You think about thresholds, how the body marks them with small chemical ceremonies, cortisol dipping as safety rises, muscles releasing the last of their bracing. You let the ceremony begin. Before the door opens. You step from the cedar shelter and cross the clearing. Rain patters on your hood, then quiets as you pass beneath the eave. You lift your hand to knock, and in that pause, you realize the forest has given you a gift. Your attention, gathered from its scattered places, returned like a cloak around your shoulders. You breathe once more, slow and complete. The latch turns from within. Warmth breathes through the seam. The glow spills onto wet stone and makes a small, golden river at your feet. You stand at the edge of inside, listening to the rain offer, its soft applause behind you, and feel the next question rise like steam from a cup. You draw nearer, steps quiet, breath warm in mist. You pause and wonder what waits beyond the lighted wooden threshold tonight. You draw nearer, steps quiet, breath warm in mist. You pause and wonder what waits beyond the lighted wooden threshold tonight. You pause with your knuckles hovering, and the door answers first. It yields a hand's width, releasing a ribbon of amber light and the faint honeyed breath of beeswax. You step through truly. The room holds the rain at the threshold and gathers. You into warmth, the way cupped hands shelter a flame. The door settles on its soft latch. Candlelight makes the air seem visible. Shadows lean and return like slow tides. You feel the contrast along your cheeks and fingers where mist still cools the surface. Temperature is not a number to your body. It is a sensation carried by messengers. In the ridges of your fingertips and the planes of your forearms, receptors open like listening flowers and compose a map your brain reads without effort. Your steps quiet on the wooden floor. The boards have stored the day's heat, and the rising warmth touches your soles. Deep inside you, a small conductor in the brain, the hypothalamus keeps steady time. It listens to reports from skin and core, adjusting you in ways you rarely notice. Blood vessels under the skin ease wider, sending more heat to the surface. Muscles loosen, breath deepens. Like a hearth being opened, you begin to glow from within. You draw closer to the candles. Their flames are small suns with better manners. The light leans golden, rich in the red end of the spectrum that speaks softly to your night biology. Blue light tells morning stories. Warm light hums of evening. Under this color, your inner clock remembers to protect the dark. The gland that makes melatonin listens, and in this room, it nods. Your eyes relax. Your thoughts lose their edges. You reach a hand toward the nearest candle, testing the air above it. Heat blurs into a column that dances. Even a finger's width matters. The gradient is a language of distance written on your nerves. Signals travel to the spinal cord and up to the place where sensation becomes meaning. Warmth, your mind decides. Not danger. Safety is partly prediction. It considers context and the small invitations of place. Cedar smoke, a kettle beginning to murmur. Your shoulders untying. Somewhere in your chest, your heart recalibrates. Slow inhales lengthen your vagus. Nerves influence, tilting you toward rest and digest. The room participates. Curtains hush the windows. Shelves hold glass jars of herbs, their labels hand-lettered. The scent of rosemary rides the air, a calm companion to the beeswax. You sense an old practicality. Warmth is energy spared, not spent. You push back your damp hood, and a pleasant shiver runs your scalp. The shiver is not cold now. It is the release of tension, goosebumps fading like a field lying down after wind. If the air were cooler, tiny muscles at the base of each hair would lift them upright, a memory from furred ancestors. But here, those muscles rest. Skin remembers ease. The tiny gates of your sweat glands close their eyelids. On the table, A clay cup waits. You wrap your hands around it, though it is empty, sampling the warmth stored in its body. Your palms and fingertips hold more sensors than most places. They read heat like braille. The signals join with interoception, the inner sense of blood. Breath, stomach, and together, they write a mood your mind can understand. Comfort is not one thing. It is many small agreements aligning. You take a seat near the hearth. The chair knows the shape of other evenings. Its wooden arms shine where hands have polished them with time. You imagine people finishing long days and doing the same quiet algebra. Is it safe to soften now? Where cold keeps you coiled, warmth lets you unfold. Blood moves more freely to the skin. Joints glide, the candles gutter and recover. Each flame is a choreography of fuel and oxygen, of wax turning to vapor and catching at the wick's edge. You notice how the flame narrows when you draw close and widens when you lean back. The air is a partner. Warm air swells and rises. Cooler. Air slips in to take its place, a slow circulation that stirs the room without draft. You align your breathing with the rise and fall, until flame and chest seem to share one tide. Warmth edits sound. Rain, once a cool percussion, becomes background lace. The occasional pop from the hearth is punctuation in a friendly letter. Your nervous system lowers the volume so the body can repair. Cells mend faster when stress is gentled. The heart's variability improves, a sign of flexibility. You cannot see the statistics, but you can feel the thesis. Ease rewrites you molecule by molecule. You sip from the cup now filled with hot water and a few crushed leaves. The first touch to your tongue is almost sweet. Temperature alters taste. Warmth opens aromatic doors. As the liquid travels downward, a wave of comfort follows it like a trailing cloak. The esophagus shares news with the brain. Heat incoming. Muscles loosen their guard. You lean back. The chair approves. Time stretches. Candlelight refuses to tick. You remember that the body has many clocks. The cellular timers that govern sleep, the hormonal weather that skims the days, the beat-to-beat choices of the heart. Warmth speaks to all of them in the same accent. Unhurried, your eyelids weight themselves with coins. Outside, the rain slows to a mist again, as if the world, too, is sipping. You think of why warmth feels like safety and keep the words simple. When you were small, comfort often arrived as heat, held close, wrapped in blankets, given soups and teas. The nervous system took notes. Later, a warm room replays that memory with different actors. It is association, the brain's gift for. Pattern used in kindness. You are allowed to accept it. Without analysis, your gaze drifts to a shelf holding a small bell, a dried orange slice, a jar of salt, a folded letter sealed in green wax. The letter seems part of the room's warmth, a promise yet unopened. You imagine its weight in your palm, the sound of wax cracking, the slide of paper, the first word. Not yet, you think, but soon. It is good to have a near future that is gentle. Set your cup down and listen once more. The rain is almost finished speaking. Inside you, the earlier cool has drained away. In its place is a steady, even heat that feels like belonging. Your shoulders have learned the room's language. Your breath is the same shape as the flame. You understand why people have kept candles for centuries, even after brighter lights were born. Some knowledge is about intensity, and some is about tone. The door, which had taken the rain side of the world, waits quietly in its frame. Beyond it a path glistens, and the night prepares its deeper lessons. Within, the cottage waits with others. A table of maps, a window that frames a particular star, a staircase that leans into a hush. You feel the invitation of those rooms like a warm hand at your back. You rise, ready to carry this comfort into whatever the next doorway gives. You hold the warm handle, listening to the house breathe. Somewhere a page rustles, a map waiting for your hands, and the next room asks, in a voice of candlelight, where you are willing to go. The shelves rise like quiet forests, each jar a small habitat of memory. You move closer, reading labels written in a looping hand: lavender, chamomile, lemon balm, motherwort, yarrow. Others speak from farther places: tulsi, ashwagandha, skullcap, valerian, meadowsweet. The room smells like a library that learned to breathe in gardens. The witch stands beside you without hurry, palms open as if introducing old friends. She taps a jar, and the leaves inside shiver. Every plant keeps a diary, she says, and the idea settles. Plants write in chemicals because they cannot walk away. They craft molecules to talk, to guard, to mend. When you borrow those molecules, your body sometimes learns the same calm. Fluency. You lift the jar of lavender and ease the lid. The perfume rises floral, clean, slightly sweet. Linalool folds into your breath, and little muscles in your face unclench. The mind recognizes this grammar before you find the words. A slope toward ease. Chamomile waits in a jar the color of wheat. You remember teas before bed, steam lifting like a white scarf. The witch murmurs apigenin the way one names a trusted. Neighbor nothing theatrical, only near. That little flavone fits quiet locks in the brain and encourages the hinge to swing toward rest. You roll a dry blossom between thumb and finger. It crackles like kindling, then yields a whisper of apple. And hey, you think of how much rests in the angle of a molecule, how a small arrangement chooses a key that opens a certain door. Another jar holds lemon balm, bright even in its paleness. You crush a leaf, and a soft citrus sigh escapes. Monoterpenes. You think light-footed notes in a plant's song. Your own cells use related building blocks to shape hormones. Kinship hums in the background. Plants sing in terpenes, the witch says. We have ears for it, even when we don't know we're listening. The rain agrees on the roof, keeping a rhythm that steadies your pulse. On a higher shelf sits valerian root, knots of pale brown like sleeping animals. Its scent is earthy, almost wild. Not everyone loves it, she admits, but bodies in need often do. Small molecules from the root nudge GABA doors a little wider, letting calm step in and sit down. You picture a room inside your head where chairs pull closer to the hearth. Your shoulders notice, and your breath makes more room. She reaches. For skullcap, a name that once sounded fierce to you, but now feels gentle. Flavonoids glimmer in the leaves like quiet lanterns. Plants keep such pigments as shields against high sun and stress. In you, they can help settle tiny storms in wires. And vessels. You imagine oxidative sparks dimming, a night sky less cluttered by static. It pleases you that the world inside you and the sky outside you share habits. How do plants learn to hold such medicines? You ask. By staying, she says. By being eaten and not moving away. Plants negotiate with insects and fungi. And drought. Tannins tighten their surfaces like stitched leather. Bitters announce, in clear letters, not so much. Yet in small amounts, bitterness wakes your own chemistry: saliva, bile, enzymes, like opening windows in a closed room. You lift a jar of gentian, and its scent pricks your tongue awake. Without haste, at the back of one shelf, a bundle of meadowsweet leans against glass. The witch places it in your hands. From plants like this, people found a clue that became aspirin. Salicylates whispering the possibility of softer pains. You think of willow bark, of centuries of aching heads eased by water and time. Knowledge grew from noticing, from patterns remembered at firesides. Science is a long conversation across generations. This cottage is part of that table. She pours hot water into a wide-mouthed pot and covers it with a board that fits like a lid. Steam swells, carrying the room's alphabet toward the ceiling, where it writes in temporary cursive. Some medicines want to fly, she says, nodding to the fragrant cloud. Volatile oils work through nose and lung, quick as birds. Others want patience roots and barks that ask for simmering to yield their thicker stories. You learn the difference between infusion and decoction without any chalk on the wall. Your nose and the steam are enough. Your fingers explore labels and languages that taste old on the tongue. Tulsi holy basil smells like a prayer written in green ink. Eugenol warms the air, a spice note that clears narrow corridors behind. Your eyes. Ashwagandha, heavier in the jar, smells like soil after a long day of sun. Adaptogen, says the witch, not as a magic word, but a plain description herbs that help the body meet change with steadier hands. They do not push. A remind. She sets a small scale on the table, and you watch her measure by weight and by listening. A pinch is precise when the hand has learned its grammar. The mixture glows in the pot like a pocket meadow. You realize. Tea is a kind of study. Water reading leaves, leaves answering, time binding the understanding. Your breath keeps pace with the rain's pulse. The cottage feels like a lung you are inside. You ask gently about safety, the patient question that honors bodies. She nods, approving the care. Not every leaf belongs to every person, she says. Plants are potent because they mean what they say. Some thin the blood, some stir the womb, some argue with medicines already at work. The point is not to fear, but to match. You appreciate the humility, the same humility science uses when it updates itself, the same respect the forest taught. You and water balanced your steps across stones. She lifts the board and pours the infusion through a strainer. The stream is the color of late afternoon. You inhale and taste before the cup reaches your mouth. In the first sip, bitterness walks ahead, carrying a lantern. Sweetness follows, like a friend who knew the way all along. Your tongue tells your gut, and your gut tells your brain, and your brain tells the rest of you that warmth and meaning are arriving. The loop is quick and kind. On the wall above the shelves hangs a simple chart sketched in pencil. Roots, barks, leaves, flowers, seeds. Beside each, a note on where the plant keeps most of its power. Seeds hide oils to feed futures. Roots store starch and strategy. Leaves are little factories of light. You remember plastids and smile at how sincerely green has learned to do. Calculus with sun. Chlorophyll caught a star and taught sugars to walk. A small jar near the window holds dried rose petals the color of evening. You ask why roses help a heart. She shrugs, not dismissing the question, but refusing to cut it too fine. Some answers are layered. Chemistry, memory, symbol, phenolics, and scent pathways. Associations from childhood gardens. The brain's habit of knitting comfort from overlapping threads. You accept the stack without tugging it apart. The petals rattle like paper birds as you set the jar back. The rain steadies equal beats on roof and earth. You can almost measure minutes by it. Your inner weather follows. There is an order here that does not squeeze. It arranges. You look down the ranks of glass and think of libraries again. Knowledge tried for keeping, brought back to speech with. Water and heat. Nothing is lost. It is only waiting for a reader. She shows you a jar of motherwort, its bitterness honest as iron. For hearts that jump at shadows, she says. You taste a leaf's edge on your tongue, and your chest settles a fraction, not by magic, but by message. Nearby, hawthorn berries wait like small rubies for a later season. The body keeps many doors. Plants carry keys on rings you are still, learning to hold. On a lower shelf, bundles of mint and thyme rest beside a squat jar of thyme honey. Ants once loved this sweetness, the witch says, pointing to the sealed lid with a smile, and you imagine summer fields buzzing with small decisions. Honey keeps because it is both sugar and lesson. Too little water for microbes to gather acids. And enzymes guarding the golden gate. You taste a drop and feel how food becomes medicine simply by being itself. She opens a drawer and lifts a folded cloth map of the nearby hills, pressed with sprigs, nettle, plantain, wild rose, pine. The shelves are only half the story, she says. Outside is the index. You run a finger along a printed creek and remember how the forest felt like a lung. The plants here are coordinates, and the cottage is a compass pointing you back. To listening. Your cup empties. Steam thins to a faint ribbon and vanishes. Somewhere the kettle clicks its little completion. You stand, and the wood floor answers with a soft sound, as if approving the lesson. Between breaths, you think of phytochemistry again, and notice that the word is simply plants speaking chemistry, a bridge, not a border. Bridges are for crossing at human speed. You look once more along the shelves. Glass shines like quiet water. Leaves rest like archived weather. If you pressed your ear to a jar, you feel you could hear the season it remembers. The witch ties a length of green ribbon around your wrist, not a promise, but a placeholder. For when you need to find your way back to the gentle. She says. At the far end, a small unlabeled jar waits, sealed with wax the color of moss. You lift it and feel a delicate shift in weight, as if the contents were light as moth wings. Those are for courage, she says again, voice lower now, as though courage itself likes being spoken softly. You do not open it, not yet. Curiosity rises like warm vapor, and your gaze drifts toward the darker doorway, where a map glows and the window practices its starlight. The rain keeps time, the candles agree, and something in you leans toward what waits next. You cradle the moss-sealed jar, listening to rain and flame breathe together, and the room ahead seems to ask, almost shyly, which path you will trace across the waiting map. You sit by the window, elbows on the warm wooden sill, and watch rain learn your name across the glass. Droplets start as scattered notes, then gather into strings that meet, merge, and slide. Each impact lifts a small patch of air, sets it trembling, and sends a wave through the room. Sound is touch traveling pressure rising and falling too quickly to see. A ripple you feel with your ears. You listen, and your breath answers. The brain has a habit called entrainment. It lets outside rhythms coach the ones within. The rain plays a soft tempo. Your lungs keep time. Inhale on the long slide of a drop. Exhale on the small hush when it pauses. If you placed a hand on your chest, you would notice the body accepting the suggestion. Nothing forced, just the nervous system agreeing that slow is safe. The witch sits nearby, winding twine around a bundle of time. Hear how wood warms the sound, she says. You notice the difference, where water taps the sill versus the pane. Glass is bright. Wood is tender. Materials have voices because they answer vibrations in their own ways. Dense glass reflects, returning a crisp ping. Wood, full of tiny cells and resin memories, turns the impact into a rounder note. Outside, drops strike leaves, soil, roof, stone. Each surface signs its name in a different frequency. High notes skim. Lower ones settle. What reaches you is a choir of many paths. Direct waves from the window, echoes from the room, a soft thunder from the roof's drum. Your ears shape the swell. Depine those curled shells, guide air inward, tipping certain frequencies. So your brain can tell where a sound began. The waves reach the tympanic membrane, a skin held at attention. It bows forward and back, passing motion to 3 tiny bones, malleus, incus, stapes. Leverage turns faint ripples into a confident push. At the oval window of the inner ear. There, in the coiled hallway of the cochlea, fluid moves like a slow river. Along its floor runs the basilar membrane, tuned from base to tip like a piano, where the keys have become places hair cells stand on that membrane, listening with their bodies. When fluid bends them, channels open and the cells whisper electricity. Each listens for a particular pitch. Together, they make a map of the rain's music, translated into pulses that climb the auditory nerve toward meaning. Somewhere along that path, the sound becomes not just pressure, but presence. Wet evening, safe room, you breathing. The brain loves patterns and almost patterns. Rain offers both. There is randomness in drop sizes and spacing, and structure in how gravity gathers them. Many gentle natural sounds act like pink noise energy spread, so lower frequencies hold a little more sway. It soothes because it resembles the weave of nature. Waves, wind, leaves. A larger drop races another down the glass. Surface tension holds the edges, and friction writes a brief story in stops and starts. When two drops merge, they release a tiny burst and accelerate, ringing a fatter note when they hit the frame. You smile at how even geometry sings. Inside the room, the wood returns a soft answer. Rain on wood is resonance. The sill's fibers, aligned by years of growth, prefer certain vibrations. Those are amplified. Others fold into warmth. That is why some instruments are maple or spruce. A tree's weather becomes a future tone. You rest your fingertips on the sill and feel the rhythm beneath the sound. The witch sets the bundle beside a ceramic bowl and says without looking up, "Your ears are not just ears. They share reports with the parts of you that feel." She means the limbic system, the emotional listener. Sounds with safe meanings. Fire crackle, a friend's footfall, rain like this loosen the alarms the day wound up. You sense those. Knots untie, one by one. Close your eyes, and the stereo picture sharpens. The brain uses tiny differences in timing and loudness between left and right to place sounds. The rain to your left arrives a fraction earlier in the left ear. Your midbrain notes it and paints a location. You do not solve it. You inhabit it. Cup one ear, and the high notes brighten with the pinna's new angle. Let go, and the sound softens again. You learn the window's small language. Faster taps mean heavier drops. A new rhythm whispers that the wind shifted. The sill explains the thickness of water by how it knocks. Breath slows further. On exhale, the vagus nerve carries news to the heart. It may rest between beats. Heart rate variability opens like a hand. The body loves conversations that include pauses. Rain is a master of pauses, staccato on the pane, legato as rivulets slide, rests where the wind hesitates. Hearing is collaboration. The brain predicts what should come next and edits its guess with incoming waves. That is why the drip that doesn't fit a sudden metallic ping. A cat's distant shout pulls your attention so fast. A model updates, and peace returns when the surprise joins the story. Tonight, the story is continuous. Water, wood, breath. The witch opens the window a finger's width. Cool air slips in, carrying a brighter treble from the eaves. The sound is nearer now, and yet the room feels larger, as if the space can breathe more easily. You imagine the same widening in the mind, sutures loosening between thoughts. The candles do not flicker. You rest your forehead against the glass. It is cool on the skin, and your inner thermometer likes the contrast. Warmth at the heart, cool. At the brow, balance. Outside, the path is a necklace of wet stones. Inside, your cup waits, a small moon of steam. The rain speaks in present tense, and you realize its lullaby is both physics and comfort, the world explaining itself kindly. One soft knock at a time. You listen longer, and the rhythm listens back, settling softly around you tonight. You lift your head from the window. On the table, a folded map waits. its blank paths humming like quiet rivers asking which line your hands will open next. You sit with the cup between your palms, its heat a gentle animal breathing against your skin. Steam rises in slow spirals, turning lamplight into soft weather. The first breath is a doorway. Warm air, damp sweetness, and the green hint of crushed leaves. Outside, rain deepens from patter to hush. As the world pulls a thicker blanket over its shoulders, you breathe again, deliberately. The steam carries tiny travelers' volatile oils rising from the surface. They drift into your nostrils and follow curved hallways within. High on the ceiling of those halls waits a small meadow of cells, the olfactory epithelium, or cilia. Stand like grasses for a breeze. Molecules land, fit, and whisper. Shape matters. Locks in those cells accept some keys and ignore others. And your brain begins to read the pattern. Signals climb along the olfactory nerve and arrive in limbic. Room's amygdala for feeling, hippocampus for memory. That shortcut is why scent is a fast storyteller. One inhalation can open a childhood kitchen, a night train, the first summer rain. Tonight it opens this candlelit room with shelves of leaves and a window glossed with water. The memory forms even as you live it. Another path travels downward. The steam you do not smell still enters, riding your breath to the lungs. Their bronchi branch and branch again, a forest reducing to twigs. At the ends, alveoli wait thin-walled rooms where air and blood shake hands across a film of water. Some molecules slip through and take quick carriage on hemoglobin's road. Others act locally, easing smooth muscle or quieting small inflammations. The tea speaks two languages at once, one to the nose, one to the chest. You hover your face above the cup and feel warmth on your lips and cheeks. Temperature itself is a message. Heat loosens mucus, encourages cilia to keep sweeping, widens. Small airways the way sunrise widens thought. You taste the edge of mint and the low hum of chamomile. Retronasal olfaction joins aroma, flowing from the mouth up into the nasal passages as you sip so smell and taste braid into flavor. The brain blends the braids and simply calls it comfort. The witch sits across from you, chin on her hand. You see why a cup can be a room? She asks. You nod. On the tongue, the tea sketches 5 steady notes sweetness from honey's thin. Ribbon, a polite bitterness, a shy salt, a ghost of acid, and a gentle umami where herbs and heat meet. Yet scent paints the walls. Terpenes make the color. A clearing breeze, a soft citrus, a warming spice. Chemistry becomes hospitality. You watch the surface swirl, little weather systems forming and dissolving. Each exhale dimples the skin of the tea and carries some fragrance outward. Each inhale gathers what you just made. Meanwhile, rain thickens its voice on the roof, the night harmonizing with itself. Inside your skull, odor patterns travel to the olfactory bulb, or fibers, sort into small knots of agreement. From there signals fan outward. One strand asks, safe? Another asks, when? A third reaches cortex to decide, good, more please. These consultations take milliseconds and feel like a single yes. Scent also speaks by absence. As your nose grows. Accustomed, certain notes fade adaptation, a kindness that keeps you open to new arrivals. The cup seems to change, though the tea is the same. You discover quieter details. Hay under flower, mint behind lemon, a resin thread that steadies the whole. You lift the cup. Heat kisses your upper lip. A first sip moves like a small river, touching palate, tongue, throat. Touch receptors join taste and smell, reporting temperature and texture. A branch of the 5th cranial nerve trigeminal notes mint's cool tingle. As sensation rather than flavor, a friendly brightening around the edges. Swallowing muscles choreograph their practiced dance, and your chest rewards them by widening further. The witch explains, not his lecture, but his story. Plants keep their volatile oils in secret pockets glands that look, under a lens, like tiny worlds. Sunlight writes in those pockets. Insects read them. Rain edits. When leaves steep, hot water opens the script and turns pages into breath. Small molecules rise with steam. Heavier ones remain for your tongue to translate. Together they perform a soft revision of your inner weather. You pause with a cup just below your chin. The rising aroma sits between you and the world like a third companion. Another breath, and an image opens. The hillside where the leaves once stood, faces angled to the sun. Roots reading the soil like braille. Wind combing the rose. You do not need to have seen that place to be reminded of it. Smell speaks honestly about things you have never met by echoing things you have. The rain gathers into longer brushstrokes, each pass painting the cottage in deeper quiet. You listen to drops addressing wood and stone. The sound steadies. Your mind. Inside, your heart follows, finding more space between beats. The vagus nerve waltzes your systems toward rest. Digestion hums, muscles loosen their guarded fists, pupils soften their grip on light. You see how warmth becomes meaning. Safety is not merely the absence of threat. It is the presence of signals that say stay. The tea says it with temperature, with terpenes, with memory. Your nose reads the statement. Your lungs sign it. Your brain files it under trust. Somewhere, a small decision forms to invite sleep's tide. When the window turns fully to night, you set the cup down and watch steam grow thinner, wisps unbraiding into clear air. The last of the volatile oils ascend like a closing chorus. You feel grateful for small technologies. Kettle, cup, leaf, breath. Each is simple. Together, they become a bridge to ease. You trace a finger along the rim and feel warmth gathering. At the lip dot, she opens a small jar under your nose. Inside, dried orange peels deepen the room with sun. You smile at how quickly the whiff clears a corridor behind your eyes. Your next sip is slower. You let flavor and breath stack like folded. Cloth, layers align. Bitter under sweet, cool under warm, scent under taste under touch. The stack supports you. You sense how memory will pin this hour to your inner board. Steam, rain, candle, wood, the witch's smile. There is science to name almost everything here. And yet the naming does not chase magic away. It offers another view. Steam's lift, receptors puzzles, limbic rooms conferring. You set those words aside and return to breath. A final breath over the tea, and a faint note appears hay after thunder, a green that leans toward sleep. Perhaps it is the hour gathering. Perhaps the chamomile is making a smaller room within the larger one, a place where thoughts agree to lower their voices. You welcome it. The rain approves, thickening once more, then tapering as if to whisper no. You finish the cup. Heat lingers in your throat and belly, a lantern carried down a hallway. You look toward the table where the folded map still waits, its lines like rivers seeking names. The witch follows your gaze and nods, as if hearing a question you have. Not spoken. You rest your fingers on the map's edge, feeling the paper warm from the cup, and you wonder which quiet road the night will teach your hands to open next. You sit nearer to the hearth, and the room gathers around the small bright center. Flames rise from the split logs like dancers greeting evening, folding and lifting in slow breath. Heat moves first as sensation, a drift across your shins, a soft hand on your knees, an invisible shawl settling over your shoulders. Outside, rain continues its steady handwriting. Inside, fire replies in warm cursive, crackle punctuating every line. Infrared warmth soaks into muscle and skin. Deeper fibers surrender. As if knots remember, they can be rope again. Heat dilates. Vessels near the surface, inviting steadier flow. Tired joints answer by releasing the day's last grit. The witch kneels and turns a piece of wood. Combustion is change, she says, and change is heat learning to sing. The log is stored. Summer cellulose and lignin built from sun, water, and the tree's careful arithmetic. When the match touched, pyrolysis began, splitting long chains into vapors. Those gases met oxygen and leapt into flame, releasing tucked-away energy as light and heat. Beneath, embered red is charcoal finishing a slower poem. You lean in and feel heat arrive in waves. Radiation travels straight, needing no messenger. Convection plays its part. Hot air rises, cool air slips in to be warmed, a loop that launders the room. Your body understands without vocabulary. Reading the pattern is comfort. Skin reports, your core listens. Shoulders unhook, another notched wood pops, a bright syllable. Tiny pockets of moisture flash to steam, cracking cell walls and launching. Sparks, each a grain of sunset. Flames look alive, yet you remember they are reaction zones testing fresh fuel thousands of times a second. Blue tongues near the base sketch hotter, more complete combustion. Yellow and orange are glowing soot sending visible light. Smoke spirals up the chimney. At first it carried heavier compounds. Now the fire burns cleaner, writing thinner lines. In the air, your lungs sip only the room's warmth. The draft draws the rest away. Hearths, chimneys, and stoves keep heat while letting smoke pass by. You hold out your palms, turning them to toast both sides. Skin knows distance by heat alone. Closer, the warmth bites. Farther, it fades to a purr. You find the pleasant radius and breathe with it. Within, mitochondria work like small furnaces, preferring steady conditions. The hearth's glow is an outer agreement with that inner fire. You feel aligned, warmed from both directions at once. Fire is old company, the witch says. It bought us evening. Light beyond sunset gathered stories and softened food, while danger kept to the edges. Faces lit from below, hands busy, voices warm, the brain recognizes the script and eases. You study the flame. Turbulence curls the edges where hot gases meet cool air. Conduction pushes heat through the log. New volatiles tremble into fire. Ash insulates what is spent. A nudge with the poker makes avalanches of light and fresh edges. Flicker writes a rhythm on your retina. Brightness rises and falls irregularly, a lullaby the brain enjoys. Pupils pulse, vision edits, calm gathers. Blue light wakes, red gold forgives. Under such tones, melatonin speaks and your circadian shawl draws close. Outside, rain thickens, then thins. The roof drums softly, the chimney hums. Heat moves through stone. You think of the tree that held this warmth rings, roots, leaves spending light into sugar dot. The smell is clean and faint, a hint of resin and toast. Eyelids grow heavier with permission. Muscles release, jaw finds rest. You lean back and let the chair be shoreline, while warmth laps your shins. The witch tells of earth kilns, wood smoldering low on oxygen to hold more carbon as fuel. Biochar folded into soil cradles water and microbes. Fire is not only consumption. Sometimes it builds. A longer table, a spark leaps and dims. Entropy spreads energy, yet arranged logs, a watchful hand, and air makes small order from drift. Comfort is design attention bent toward kindness. Physics convened as shelter, you think of safety. A metal screen turns hazard into hearth. Respect keeps the friendship, the witch says. Fire is willing and ruthless. The line is care. She tests the ash, then returns to stillness. Heat keeps finding you. Infrared touches deeper tissue. The aching muscle above your knee opens. Warmth lowers pain by easing nerves and increasing flow. The body likes stories where circulation writes. The ending thoughts grow calm. The hearth smooths the day. Problems turn to outlines. Flicker softens focus. Steady warmth unwinds alarms. You sip water and taste the mineral of the cup. Logs settle. Coals glow like a city far below. Each coal pairs with oxygen and releases heat as a final gift. Bright channels show where air is strongest. 2 breaths with the bellows, and flames stand taller. Conversation grows quiet. The witch folds paper squares, future kindling for wet days. Provisioning is a kind of peace that you think about the color of heat. Most of the fire's gift lies beyond sight, yet skin knows. TRP channels open to warmth and report good news. Temperature maps shift. The body reroutes to cool what blushes. You watch the color of the coals deepen toward a steady red, and you realize the hue is temperature speaking. As matter grows hot, glows across a spectrum, much of it beyond sight. Physicists call this black-body radiation, a smooth curve of wavelengths that shifts with heat. Hotter sources peak at shorter, bluer light, while cooler sources lean to longer, redder waves. Coals speak mostly in the infrared, which your skin reads better than your eyes. That is why you can face away and still feel the hearth touch your back. Radiant energy passes through air like quiet light and lands on you as warmth. Sitting here, you are inside a climate the hearth composes from physics. Your body seems built for it. Warm receptors open tiny gates, sending word along nerves that the edge of you is kind, not threatening. Blood vessels widen and share heat with the surface. The heart beats with more variation between notes, a sign of resilience. Your vision rests because the spectrum is gentle and the brightness never fixes in one place for long. Fire's flicker is irregular, yet coherent, a kind of moving randomness that the brain reads as natural. It steadies attention without gripping it. You think how often evenings have gathered like this for people before you. Fire extended daylight and softened winter's teeth. Around flames, people shared fuel, tended coals, watched for sparks, and told stories while food grew tender. Those rituals rehearsed safety, and the mind linked ember light with belonging. The association persists now. Orange tones lower startle, quiet in the blink, and invite conversation. Crackle signals non-threat, the opposite of a sudden metallic alarm. Warmth becomes permission. Beyond the window, darkness gathers. Rain tucks into hedges and moss. Inside, the hearth keeps teaching. Fuel, oxygen, heat. Attention, respect, time. Gratitude rises for old elements playing ancient chords. You return the poker to its hook. A final crackle, a chimney sigh, a plume of sparks. Coals dim to a tender dusk. Warmth lingers like a low tide. Your breath matches that shore. The witch lays a flat stone across the grate, slowing the draft, teaching the fire to become sleep, rather than absence. In the soft gloom, the cottage seems to knit itself closer. You close your eyes and feel the fire. Flicker paints your lids. Ears hear the quieting hearth and the softened world beyond, stitched by rain's last thin thread. Heat on your shins tells you where you are. When you open your eyes, the stones hold a memory of flame. Banked heat will keep the room gentle, then give it back to night. Bodies do the same, store kindness and spend it slowly. The witch sets a kettle on the warm perimeter. For morning, she says. The coals blink and answer. Across the room, the folded map waits, rivers and graphite, roots undecided. The fire has steadied your hands and softened your questions. You feel ready to let warmth choose a path with you. The duet fades to a solo. Embers hum. You stand slowly, carrying the gathered heat like a shawl. The hearth remains behind, smaller, not less. You bow to the bright teacher and the hands that made it safe. Your next step is toward the table, where the night's lesson will become a line, then a road. You let your palm rest on the map, feeling the paper hold a little of the hearth's heat, and you wonder which quiet river the night will ask you to follow next. You sit with the witch while the window hums with weather, and you ask the evening's question, "Where does this rain begin?" She smiles as if the sky were an old friend. "Follow one drop," she says, "and let it teach how the world remembers." Itself now got begin at the ocean, where sunlight loosens the surface. Molecules jostle, some leap free. Evaporation is liquid unbuttoning into vapor, helped by warmth and wind. Our drop rises, lighter, carrying a seed to gather on. A dust mote, a fleck of salt, a pollen grain from a faraway bloom dot higher. The air cools and invites closeness. Condensation starts, and tiny clusters form around those seeds. A cloud is born not as a sheet, but as a moving city of droplets and crystals neighbors joining, parting and rejoining as updrafts lift their streets. Where warm air rises from sea, forest, or field, it carries moisture like a song. As it cools, heat is released, and the cloud fattens on its own generosity. Names help you see them. Stratus like blankets, cumulus like sheep, cumulonimbus like mountains that learn to walk. Tonight your drop lives in a low gray blanket stitched. To the coast by wind. It meets ice in one corner, liquid in another, vapor above water, keeping many passports and switching coats without complaint. Gravity waits, patient and impartial, until mass gathers. Small drops collide and merge, becoming fewer and larger. When weight defeats lift, they fall. Precipitation is the ceremony where possibility chooses shape. Your drop tips from the cloud and begins its bright descent, a lens returning a tiny, upside-down forest to your eye as it wobbles through the air. Not every drop reaches ground. Some fade into virga, rain's rehearsal. But the air tonight is kindly wet, so your drop arrives intact, bows to a beech leaf, and runs the vein like a quick silver line. At the tip, it releases and joins a bark channel, then a dark brown ribbon. On the soil. Flow starts everywhere at once, beads into threads, threads into rills. Soil asks the drop inside. Between grains and roots, water chooses quieter motion. Infiltration and percolation are soft sciences with solid consequences. Microbes wake and gossip. Minerals loosen, roots swell with reception. Deeper, groundwater stores the day's story, moving slowly through rock like thought through sleep. In a shallow aquifer, your drop may pause cool, dim, and safe before finding a spring. Some water returns immediately from leaf and needle. Plants trade water for carbon and cool themselves by simply breathing. The forest sigh has a name. You can taste evapotranspiration. Vapor lifts from pine and fern and joins the low cloud again. The cycle is not a tidy circle on paper. It is a living braid. Your drop prefers travel now. It slips to a trickle, then a stream. In riffles, the water frays to lace. In pools, it smooths to gloss. On stones, a film clings by adhesion, while cohesion keeps the film whole water, holding water with delicate insistence. Physics feels like affection when you watch it at this scale. Rivers carry more than motion. They carry the memory of mountains, ions of calcium, sodium, and magnesium carved from rock. The ocean keeps these gifts and grows salty because vapor leaves the minerals behind. Clouds travel light. The sea remembers weight. Your drop will taste of salt again someday, but not in this chapter. The stream meets a river, then another. Reservoirs hold the gathered rain for human hands. Some water becomes electricity, turning a turbine with its falling weight. Some is cleaned, guided, and offered to a city's morning. Your drop might pass carbon and sand, meet ozone or chlorine, then flow to a kitchen, pour into a kettle, rise as steam, and return to breath. For a moment it becomes you. The body is mostly weather that decided to stay. Blood is moving rain. Lymph is a gentle flood tide. Cytoplasm is an inland sea where enzymes work like small boats. Nerve impulses depend on ions arranged along watery borders. Joints glide on liquid. Eyes keep their shine with tears. When you exhale on the window and fog appears, a glass signs your participation in the sky. Myth walks alongside fact without argument here. Some say rain is the marriage of sky and earth. Others the breath of dragons or the tears of distant gods. Science speaks again. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, runoff, storage, exchange. Both languages try to honor what happens. Your drop is fluent in both. Lightning stitches two pieces of sky, and the witch explains how storms pick their hour. Warm air rises. Ice grains collide, charges separate, and the electric field grows until air becomes a path. The spark heats a channel faster than numbers can hold. Thunder is air remembering its size. Cooling deepens condensation, and the sky lets go. Rain is release written in water, not every junction your drop chooses. It can sink into an old well and study stone for a century. It can enter salmon and climb inland as muscle and motion. It can freeze as rime on a fence post and wait for sun. It can cross borders without a passport and ignore maps people draw. Because of this, care is our craft, cleaning, sharing, restoring. Roots we have narrowed or stained. The cottage roof changes key as the rain thins. Fog already gathers in a valley bowl, the ground offering its breath back to night. Your drop may pearl spider silk at dawn and lens the world for a minute, or slip with the river toward the estuary, where fresh and salt negotiate brackish classrooms, where young creatures learn to balance. Earlier, your tea was a miniature weather cycle, steam rising, condensing on your lip, returning as warmth inside. The grand loop and the small loop are versions of each other. You inhale, and some molecule that once rode trade winds finds an old memory. Of waves in your chest, the witch opens the window wider. The scent of petrichor steps inside geosmin from soil artisans, plant oils lofted by raindrop impacts. Microbes speak, your receptors listen, and meaning forms. Home, clean, beginning. You are an eddy in the stream and always have been. Gutters gather and give, feeding a barrel that will water rosemary tomorrow. On the table, the map shines in candlelight, rivers bright as nerves. Your eyes trace a graphite line from hill to creek to sea, then back to cloud along an invisible arrow only your mind can draw. The drawing feels complete even before the last stroke. The witch dips a ladle into a bowl of rain and sets it between you. Firelight shivers on its surface. There are chapters within chapters, she says. Mist that keeps its own counsel. Snow that practices patience. Hail that learns in the school of turbulence. Dew that writes short notes at dawn. On the cedar beyond the glass, a single drop fattens, practicing decision. Breath and bowl agree on a tempo. The simplest answer arrives. Rain begins wherever warm meets cool, and water finds a reason to change its coat. It begins everywhere, always. It rises from river and road, leaf and lake, skin and kettle. It returns as cloud, as drizzle, as downpour, as dew. It carries news between ocean and oak, sparrow and stone, and never grows tired of the root. You scoop a little water in your palm and feel how it gathers, holds, then slips free without resentment when you open your hand. Traveling, you realize, can be a way of keeping. Your drop is already elsewhere, and somehow more present for that knowledge. Night settles to a single pane of dark. The roof gives a last soft tick. The gutters murmur. Quiet opens like a room you have earned. You and the witch sit with a leftover sound, a clean hush that smells of new pages. You look toward the map and wonder what path it will ask your hands. to trace after this lesson, and whether the next room keeps a compass, a window of stars, or a folded letter waiting to be warmed open by breath. You let the map glow under your fingertips, river lines bright as nerves, and you listen for the next gentle instruction the night is almost ready to give. You sink deeper into the chair as the room narrows to warmth and rain. The witch turns the lamp low. The flame becomes a patient seed. Drops on the roof leave longer spaces between notes, and those spaces cradle your breath. You let drowsiness come the way fog comes, by taking the edges first. Sleep does not fall so much as form. Inside your skull, a master clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus keeps night's appointment, measuring darkness and the lack of blue light. It whispers to the pineal gland, and melatonin pours like slow ink into your blood, tinting every tissue with the suggestion to dim. The message reaches gut and liver and skin. It reaches mood. It reaches the tiny muscles around each pupil. The body reads it as kindness. Heat slides inward from hands and feet toward the core. That small shift lowers your set point and signals safety. Vessels at the surface sigh wider, shedding the day's tension as warmth. Shoulders stop guarding. Jaw loosens. You feel heavier without feeling trapped, as if gravity has become a quilt. Your brain waves begin their gentle migration. With eyes nearly closed, alpha idles like light on a lake. When lids meet, theta arise, a thinner weave that lets pictures unbutton from facts, names soften to shapes. Footfalls of memory cross a hallway you do not need to patrol. This is stage N1, A. Threshold with a latch you can still lift if the kettle clicks. You do not. You lean in, N2 follows, and the brain sews sleep spindles across the fabric, brief bursts of faster rhythm that help seal in new learning and muffle stray noises. K-complexes bloom as single dignified knocks, acknowledging the world while keeping. You inside the room. Filing begins. What matters is labeled. What does not is lightened and set down. You can almost feel the shelf space freeing. Deeper still. N3. Slow wave sleep, where delta spreads in wide green fields. Neurons rise and rest together, a countryside of long waves. Growth hormone clocks in to tend bone and muscle. The immune watch changes shifts. Wounds accept their tiny stitches. In the brain, the glymphatic system opens sluices, letting cerebrospinal fluid wash between cells and carry yesterday's fragments away. It is housekeeping with lanterns low. Rooms you forgot air themselves. Outside, rain lowers its metronome. Inside, heart rate and blood pressure drift down. Breath rounds and evens. The vagus nerve extends its quiet governance, cueing digestion to work softly while the rest of you releases grip. No announcement, no fanfare repair is thorough precisely because it is unhurried. Time changes texture here. Minutes stop marching and become water poured. Awareness loosens its knot around story and holds rhythm instead, like a boat riding small waves after the oars are stowed. The witch says your body remembers how to heal without you instructing it. After a while, no clock needed. REM opens like a bright petal in the dark. Behind your lids, eyes flicker in miniature journeys. The brain regains near-waking activity, but changes the rules. A chemical break on the spinal cord keeps limbs still, while the mind experiments. Dreams appear. They are not random escapes. They are integrations, stitching emotion to memory, surprise to solution, fear to rehearsal, until it frays. You are safe enough to travel. Rain becomes a score beneath images, road, gate, field, a voice you love speaking your name as if laying a blanket. The map on the table shines like a coastline. Its lines cross into your dream and become rivers you ford without wetting your boots. Melatonin will crest and ebb toward dawn. Cortisol, not an enemy but a morning tool, will rise quietly to tune attention and prepare muscles for the day. Core temperature will lift a little. The world will sharpen. None of that hurries you now. Night keeps its chores, proteins folding. Where they belong, synapses pruning and strengthening, bones trading minerals, tendons whispering old injuries into better order. You roll to one side, and your spine thanks you by spacing its discs. The mattress offers an equal reply. Any worry that tries the door meets the guard of spindles and turns away. In this house, the guest list is short. Rain pauses. Your lungs count 4 on the way in and 6 on the way out without instruction. The longer exhale invites the heart to linger between beats. Variability blooms, the sign of a system with options. If you were a meadow, dew would be beating on your grasses now, dot at the lip of another rim. You almost surface, but choose the gentler grade. Dream takes a cooler color, then warms at the center. You touch a knob made of moonlight. It turns opening. A familiar street that never existed. The absurd is allowed because the purpose is sense-making, not census-taking. You are free to combine. Somewhere, perhaps, the witch lifts a blanket and settles it over your knees. Perhaps you only dream she does. Either way, the body accepts permission and goes deeper. Muscles slacken just enough to be painless. Throat and tongue remember the open posture of easy breathing. A final simple thought arrives. The way a stone settles in a pocket. Every creature practices this choreography, each in its kind. Bats swing it upside down. Whales take it in surfacing spirals. Newborns learn its steps with milk on their breath. Night is not the opposite of day, but its root. What you are doing now is drawing water from morning's leaves. Sleep gathers you like a tide that knows the shape of your shore. The cottage creaks once in a friendly way. Rain resumes a little lighter. Systems align like gears easing toward. Perfect mesh, not stopping but engaging quietly with what supports them. You drift, and in drifting you notice a lantern within the dark, an idea you will not open yet. The next room, which may be a room or a memory, or a road, waits without urgency. Your breath writes its invitation in lines. You turn toward that inner lantern, breath a calm, unbroken ribbon, and you wonder what tender country the night will open when you take the next small step within. You drift at the shoreline of sleep and waking, and in that tender tide a path appears. You are outside without leaving the chair, rain hanging in fine threads that part around your shoulders, as if kindness had learned weather. Each drop slows. As it nears you, turns to pearl and slides aside. The forest glows with its own quiet reasons. Low on a fallen log, small caps shine like lanterns cupped in hands. You step closer, and the light answers by breathing. Bioluminescence is chemistry, taught to sing. In the dark, certain mushrooms carry a tiny engine. Luciferin meeting oxygen, encouraged by luciferase. With a little ATP, the body's koinophoton is released, not from heat, but from reaction. Cold light. The mushroom gives no smoke, no scorch, only a patient green that seems to move even when it holds still. Mycelium threads the log beneath, like a quiet city conducting sapwood affairs. The glow may invite insects to visit and spread spores. It may also be spillover a faint side street lit because a busier avenue is open. Either way, light becomes invitation. Your dream knows this, because your memory does. You saw a picture once in a book, or on a late screen when the room was already evening. The mind keeps such images ready to stitch into narrative. During REM, ripples from the brainstem nudge the visual system awake inside the dark. The occipital. Cortex paints, limbic rooms supply mood. The prefrontal editor loosens its tie. The result is not nonsense. It is story built from association instead of clock time, meaning before measurement, image before explanation. You look down, and your hands are leaf-littered, warm, and light. Raindrops kiss your knuckles, without wetting them. The forest smells like coins and tea. From a stump, a paragraph of foxfire ink writes itself along the grain. You read without language. Perception in dreams uses memory as ink and expectation as brush. The world feels correct because the brain predicts and then gently confirms its prediction. A theater where you are both audience and stagehand. The Witches. Voice finds you softly, the way a path finds the feet that need it. She speaks from nowhere and everywhere at once. Light is a message that doesn't raise its voice, she says. Even cells write in light when they want to be gentle. You think of plankton seas bluing under oars, of summer fireflies. Speaking in flashes, of deep fish wearing runway lamps along their flanks. All rely on the same principal fuel, meeting oxygen under an enzyme's guidance. Waste heat so low, the light stays cool enough to cradle. You pass beneath the cedars. Arms. Needles wear beads of rain that shine with borrowed light. Beyond, the floor blooms with tiny lamps. Pinellas, Armillaria, Omphalotus, names you once traced with a fingertip along a page, returning now as coordinates. The glow is steady, not flicker. Your breath falls into its tempo. Above, the clouds lift like slow curtains. Leaf shapes become constellations. The path becomes a river of soft green coins, curving toward a hush you are happy to follow. Dream physics obeys feeling before. Wait. When you step, the ground agrees to be near. You notice a stream, not there an instant ago, now exactly where sound says it should be. Water glows faintly where spores and bacteria converse. You kneel and hold your palm above it. The light brightens as if answering attention. Perhaps it is only your eyes adjusting rods, gathering the scene in their silver nets. Perhaps your brain, ever generous, is offering the world you expected to greet. Either way, the glow feels earned. She explains how the sleeping mind curates images. The hippocampus unwraps recent parcels. The amygdala colors them with echoes of emotion. The cortex arranges scenes by similarity instead of sequence. Consolidation happens here, files moved, cross-referenced, trimmed, expanded. These mushrooms are keepers of links. Forest to book, book to wonder, wonder to calm. In a corner of the dream, a kettle's memory sighs, and even that becomes a green shimmer on the stream. Out you walk deeper, and the glow gathers like a choir. Tiny millipedes carry moving light along bark, borrowing from fungal fields. A beetle lifts and traces a dotted line through the damp. Bioluminescence serves many purposes, luring allies, warning predators, disguising bodies against starlit water by matching the sky. In your dream, every purpose simplifies into kindness, each light saying here, and you are welcome, then repeating it until the message becomes the air. The rain becomes a hush of beads sliding on silk. You pass your hand through them, and they ring without sound. Sensation in dreams may arrive without raw input. The somatosensory map plays remembered touch while the body rests. Outside the dream, muscles are stilled by a thoughtful break, so the story can run without spilling you from the chair. Inside, motion feels true because intention fires the same neurons that movement would have used. Practice, healing, and invention. All visit here and leave notes on the door. The path widens to a clearing. At its center stands a stump wearing a crown of mushrooms, green as tidewater. Their light reveals threads like telephone wires, and you think of how communication can be slow and still be complete. The forest exchanges sugar and news under your feet while you sleep. Your brain exchanges meaning between rooms under the sane moon. You are a house passing notes to itself. Somewhere a hinge in you quiets. You sit on the stump, and the glow climbs the hem of your coat. Your breath matches the gentle wave the light seems to ride. In some species, brightness drifts. With temperature or oxygen, a living dimmer seeking balance. In you, breath modulates the dream's weather. Each long exhale smooths contrast. Each patient inhale makes edges kinder. The mushrooms approve, or perhaps you approve of yourself through them. Either way, the forest leans nearer without touching. A fox appears at the clearing's edge, assembled from memory and wish. Its coat reflects no glow, but its eyes catch enough to become two small planets. It nods as if recognizing a fellow traveler. Dream animals often speak without mouths. You understand that it says, "Keep going." You rise when it turns, and the path follows. Its tail like a comet, easy as a yes. You are lighter than before. Somewhere beyond the trees, the cottage waits, but distance in this place obeys attention. When you look behind, your footprints scintillate and fold into shadow. When you look ahead, the forest opens as politely as a book. The witch's voice returns. Light that costs little is given freely, she says. So is the light you make when you forgive. The dream nods and adds more lamps. As if the lesson prefers demonstration. At the edge of the wood, you find a brook lit from within by scattered sparks. The water tells you a small truth. Even in darkness, there are honest measures. Your brain keeps time here with slow oscillations. Your heart replies by floating between beats. The brook keeps time with gradient and stone, with gravity's sentence, softened by moss. You cup water, and it climbs your palm without wetness, then returns to its stream with thanks. The gesture feels ceremonial and ordinary at once. Across the brook, a gate you have never seen waits with the certainty of something remembered. Its bars are firm ribs. Its latch is a crescent moon. You understand without thinking that beyond. It is the room you chose before sleep, the table, the folded nap, the window that hoards one faithful star. The mushrooms brighten as if to offer a torch. You do not need it. The path now is made of attention, and attention is a kind of light. You touch the gate and feel its cool dream metal, neither wood nor iron, exactly the temperature of your curiosity. It opens without resistance. Rain thins to mist, then to the suggestion of mist. You take one step through and discover that thresholds and dreams are not lines, but gradients. Behind you, the forest keeps glowing. Ahead, the cottage breathes with the quiet of a friend who waited without counting. A soft inhale that includes your name. In the room you never left. The fire is a red thought, steady and low. Your hands still cradle warmth from the cup you finished, hours or minutes ago. Between those hands lies only the ghost of steam. Yet the smell of damp earth and leaf still threads the air, as if you carried the forest inside your sleeve. Of course you did. Memory is porous on purpose, and the night is happy to borrow your pockets. She adjusts the blanket over your knees. Perhaps she truly does. Perhaps the dream has borrowed her to finish its sentence. We see what we are ready to hold, she says. Tonight you are ready for gentle light. You agree, wordless. The mushroom's glow has faded, but the lesson remains lit. Small reactions, patiently tended, can make a night navigable, a path passable. A thought kind. Your eyes move once behind their lids, a fish turning in a calm lake. The rain writes fewer syllables on the roof. Somewhere below hearing, your body keeps editing and mending, choosing which moments to save for morning. You let the path of the dream fold like a paper lantern and rest on the shelf of now. The room is a harbor. The forest is a companion ship anchored near. The space between is only breath, moving in its ancient corridor. You feel the map's quiet. Weight waiting on the table, and you wonder, when you wake, which gentle line the morning will invite your hand to trace next. You wake to a room the color of quiet. The window is a pale rectangle of breath, and beyond it the world speaks in mist. The rain has ended, but its handwriting lingers on everything. droplets stitched along the cedar's boughs. A clear fringe on the eaves, pearls marching the fence line. The hearth holds a low red memory. Your body feels rinsed, as if the night had laundered thought and hung it in warm air to dry. You sit up slowly, letting blankets slide to your lap. The air smells of wood and rosemary, and the unmistakable breath of wet ground. Petrichor returns geosmin lifted from the soil by yesterday's splash, plant oils freed by the first fat drops. The scent is chemistry and meaning together. A preface the day intends to honor Dot at the door. Mist gathers and parts like a shy conversation. Each leaf carries a lens. When the sun lifts higher, it will fracture those lenses into tiny rainbows. For now they are silver, repeating the cottage and your standing shape 1,000 times. Cool brushes your cheeks. A stored warmth rises from stone. The contrast edits you toward alertness without hurry. The witch is at the rain barrel, dipping. A ladle. Taste how the sky writes sweetness, she says, offering the cup. Rainwater is soft unburdened of rock, so tea blooms truer and seedlings drink without salt to puzzle them. You sip, and the clean temperature draws a bright line through. Morning. Along the path, last night's rivulets have braided the ground. The earth rearranged itself as water asked. Grains sorted by size, a fine skin of silt laid down in quiet corners. Tiny gullies sketched where excitement ran too fast. Erosion is not only loss, it is relocation patient redrawing. In the beds, mulch held soil the way a palm holds a pool, open yet guarding. The witch nudges a straw back into place, practical as weather. You crouch by strawberries and see water gathered where leaf meets stem, making little wells for later. On the undersides, stomata will open when light and need agree. Photosynthesis will resume its green arithmetic, pulling carbon from air and building sugars coil by coil. Yesterday's rain refilled the columns. Within, water climbs under tension, molecules tugging one another through xylem, so long as leaves keep evaporating cohesion, like friends crossing a stream, hand in hand Dot in the herb rows. Color has returned, basil brighter, sage less dusty, thyme standing a finger taller. At root tips, hairs that look like fog under a lens have taken their sip. Around them, mycorrhizal threads trade whispers for sugar, swapping phosphorus and zinc for the plant's sweet coin. The network wakes after rain, the way a town wakes after a festival of washing. You picture maps drawn in threads, junctions bright, packets moving with purpose. Soil is not dirt. It is a republic sand, silt, clay, scraps of leaf, nearly leaf. Humus, that veteran of decomposition holding water, like memory. Pockets of air. Microfauna with complicated names and simple jobs. Rain enters, wakes, and negotiates. Where drops fell hard, crusts may have formed. Where they seeped, aggregates strengthened, tiny cities mortared by bacterial glues. Press a clod now, and it crumbles with dignity, rather than smearing a sign of structure. The difference between a crowd and a community. Forms have written there, cursive along the paths, casting coils of richer earth. Their work is both digestion and design, tunnels for air and water, surfaces enlarged for roots, chemistry sweetened in passing. Birds read these signatures and leave soft prints in return. A robin plucks one breakfast with a practiced motion and regards you with a button of an eye. You bow to the exchange. Water continues its errands. Roof to barrel to watering can. Barrel to bed to leaf, leaf to sky again. The hydrologic cycle this morning is a household loop nested inside the world's grand braid. Down valley, a creek gossips louder than yesterday, shouldering sticks and leaf confetti toward the low bridge. Floodplains memorize such moods and flatten theatrics into longer stories. The witch speaks of roots knitting banks and shade cooling riffles. Of beavers, where allowed, widening the book so more species can read it. The air feels easier to breathe. Rain has scavenged dust and pollen from the lower atmosphere, packing them for delivery to Earth. Mist holds a little more oxygen near the ground where moss drinks and spiders rebuild. Sound is also new. Edges softened, thresholds lower, birds tuned to the key of clean. A wren tries a note that rings like glass rinsed in light. Back inside, the witch spreads a damp nap of the morning. Small chores arranged like islands. Hang herbs to dry. Empty ash beneath the elderberry. Stir the compost once oxygen without disruption. At the pile she lifts a fork. Steam rises like a relieved. Sigh. Yesterday's water fed microbes, and their meal sends heat into the cool. Composting is combustion at gentler temperature. Carbon meeting oxygen under bacterial chaperones, making warmth, water, and humus. Instead of flame-dot basket in hand, you walk the path, clipping spent flowers, shaking water from their centers, with a touch light as breath. In the fence's shade, mushrooms have shouldered up overnight pale commas writing now on mulch. Some will melt by noon. Some will stand like pages until spores lift in midday thermals and go teaching elsewhere. You leave them to their curriculum dot at the edge of the clearing. The forest waits washed and receptive. Lichens on the branch have plumped from parchment to velvet. Each is a treaty between fungus and alga. One builds scaffolding. The other runs a sugar mill from light. Together they endure where leaf and root would fail. After rain, they look like instruments tuned. You kneel to read the moss. Capillary action lights its tiny forests with a traveler's flask. If you listened hard enough, you might hear a sigh of reanimation. Cryptobiosis, the art of almost stopping as. Paused. Cells open doors and set chairs out again. Water is not only need, it is permission to be specific. Every species shows detail when wet. A breeze lifts, and the sun decides to mean it. Mist thins to gauze, then to suggestion. Droplets on lower maple leaves release, ticking stones in irregular applause. Steam rises in sheets, so thin they look like rumors. Evaporation begins the return leg of the day's loop, carrying small passengers skyward to join larger conversations. Your sleeve cuffs grow lighter. Shadows gain edges. Rain is medicine that comes on its own schedule, the witch says. Our work is to be the kind of place that heals efficiently so little is wasted. You see how the cottage tries. Roof pitched to barrels, paths mulched to hold soil, beds edged to slow water, trees left to break wind, a wild corner reserved for whoever refuses tidy. The design is not rigid, it is conversational. Rain speaks. The place answers with shape. You look toward the path home. Already it feels like a continuation of last night's dream. The forest you dreamed glows by day with a different, quieter light, the kind made when leaves turn solar and begin the daily hymn. The map beside the door waits with your route in pencil. You feel ready to walk through the day without piercing it. Inside, the room has cooled into readiness. You tidy your cup and fold the blankets kept warmth on the chair. The coals are slate gray with one heartbeat orange underlayer. You rake them gently and lay a wafer of kindling for evening to find. Small future fires nobody needs to hurry dot. At the threshold you pause, as you did on arrival, but the feeling is changed. Then you are a question. Now you are a sentence with room at the end for surprise. Your body holds last night's slow science, the way wood holds ember, a method of making light without burning through at once. Breathing answers the world with patience. The path out becomes the path in, written differently. You step into the mild. Shoes meet softened earth, and thank it. The air carries a faint sweetness where alder catkins release, promises you cannot. Yet see, a dragonfly tries the damp corner of sun for an instant, a shard of moving green. Across the clearing, the fox of your dream leaves a real print in mud and slips into bracken-proof that borders between ways of knowing are best treated as bridges. You turn to wave. The witch answers with a small circle of the hand, a blessing. That lands on your shoulders with the weight of nothing and the effect of everything. The door closes like agreement. Ahead, the path holds tiny mirrors in each footprint you make, then forgets them on purpose. Trees make narrow theaters. Birds fold and unfold messages in light. The last threads of mist unwind from the ditch and vanish into new moored air dot. Your steps find an easy cadence. Muscles coordinate with breeze and leaf hush. Somewhere deeper, your mind lays out the day, not as tasks, but as angles of attention. You feel the forest's republic, continuing behind and within you. Water moving, roots speaking, light writing sugars into green. You carry the lesson in a place beyond words. And as you reach the curve where the cottage disappears, the scent of petrichor rises again, like a friend walking beside you for a few quiet steps before turning down its own gentle road. You follow. A pale road where moss brightens the stones, breath steady, hands unhurried, and you wonder what new door the afternoon will open that feels somehow like the same who. And now, as our story gently fades, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this moment with me. Your presence here means the world, and your support helps me create even more peaceful journeys. Just for you. If this helped you rest, please consider liking, subscribing, or simply coming back tomorrow night. Until then, stay cozy, stay kind, and may your dreams tonight be soft, serene, and full of wonder. Good night, my friend. With warmth, David.